Okay, welcome to Video Game Design Part 9, and since I want to wrap this up in 10 parts, I'm going to make the theme of this part boss battles. And I'm also going to do this in my first take, and I've never tried this before, so let's see what happens. So first, to start, go ahead and get two images. One to be your boss, so I got M. Night Shyamalan, and one to be a projectile that your boss is going to fire at you, the main character. Now I'm going to have M. Night Shyamalan chase me across the screen, or at least that's what I'm thinking right now. So once you have your characters in the screen, let's go ahead and create some variables for them. Dim, let me just copy this line. It'll save me some time. Mine was called, or I'm going to initialize it as Shyamalan, because I called my pick Shyamalan. And I believe I called the other one Flappy Birds or Flappy, so I'll call mine Pick Flappy. So first let's get Shyamalan to move towards us. As a character, I have an int map that keeps track of my X and Y position. So if I as a character have an int map and I want Shyamalan to chase me across the screen, then you better believe that he needs an int map also. But we can't use int map, so let's use int map 2. Or actually, int map Shyamalan. And it will also keep track of his X and Y locations. So now that we have that set up, let's go and create a private sub for Shyamalan. Private sub. We'll call it boss Shyamalan. And actually, I just realized that int map was actually when we were painting things. Int map. It's actually the X position and the Y position that are the ones that are constantly changing. And that's what's keeping track of our character, or moving our character pretty much. So I'm going to actually copy these and paste them down and change this to X position of Shyamalan and Y position of Shyamalan instead of an int map. Now, if he started exactly where our character's at, he would instantly kill our character in theory. So let's go ahead and move him a little ways away from our character. I'm going to move him to like, let's say 17. Sure, 17 in the X direction, and then let's do like 2 in the Y direction. So he starts a little bit away from our main character. Now, back in the sub. Pretty much, we're just comparing where Shyamalan is on the screen, and if he's not where our character's at, he's going to continuously fly until he reaches our character. Now, if he moved as fast as our character did, then our character would eventually die, and it wouldn't be a very fun game. So we're actually going to make Shyamalan fly slower than how fast we can move, giving us the opportunity to run away should we want to. So if X position, let's say, is less than of X position Shyamalan, because X position's for our main character and X position of Shyamalan is our other is for Shyamalan. Then what do we want to happen? Well, let's say our character was at 300 pixels and Shyamalan was at 500 pixels, then we want the number of Shyamalan to get less. So let's say X position of Shyamalan minus equals, and how fast is our character moving again? I think, what did we say? I think I skipped it. Where'd it go? Alright, it's up here. Sorry, I had to pause for a second to find it. So our character is right now moving at the rate of 4 pixels based on how long we press our button. So let's say Shyamalan for the time being is going to move at 2 pixels to make it a fair fighting chance. So that's if it's less. And let's just create if statements for each of them. So straight up if statements. If X position is greater, whoops, then so 5 to 3, then we want to add to X position Shyamalan. And now let's go for the Y positions. So Y position Shyamalan, if that's at 3 and that's 5, yeah, we want Shyamalan to move up, so that's fine. And then let's just copy this again. And put that. Y position Shyamalan, Y position Shyamalan. Okay, so now every time boss Shyamalan runs, it's going to automatically check your location of your character and compare it to Shyamalan's and try to move Shyamalan closer to you. So let's go ahead to our main program. So draw our character, and then we can have it before or after our projectile. It shouldn't really matter. Drawing our boss. And I don't want to make anything transparent, so let's just do drawing, or whoops, not drawing. What did we call it again? Boss Shyamalan. Do that and that. Okay, let's give this a run and see what happens. So nothing right now. Let me think about this first. And I realized immediately that I need to draw it. Okay, that's quick to do. I ran Boss Shyamalan, but I never drew his character onto the screen. So let me just copy a GDraw image, change this to G Shyamalan, change his X position to X position Shyamalan, Y position Shyamalan, and I believe the rest should be fine, except that R is probably not equal to his length right now. So what's my Shyamalan at? 78 by 55. Let's see if I can just substitute out this R for 78 by 55. No, doesn't like that. Okay, I stopped it. So let's just quickly head down then and just create a new rectangle for Shyamalan, or for your boss. Mine's 78 by 55 pixels. Got to keep track of that. So in here, R, oh, okay. R is equal. Oh, because it's not in the sub, my bad. R is equal to a new rectangle of 0, 0, 78, 55. There we go. So starting, ending, and then it's length in the X direction, length in the Y direction. And that should draw out M. Night Shyamalan perfectly. Let me head back to my main code, and this should be fine now. Let's go ahead and give this a run. And there. Now you can see Shyamalan is like chasing me around the screen, and you can already tell that this is not going to end well, because apparently 2 pixels is too much. So let me go ahead and adjust the pixel count of Shyamalan. So I'm going to change it to 1 pixel. He's still got some definite speed, but I think maybe I can outrun him. The one advantage Shyamalan has over us is that he can move diagonally, while as a character, we've only programmed it to move in a linear fashion, so either up, down, or left, right. So I can see like he could eventually like gain advantage of us, but I think it's pretty fair. We could like launch stuff at him, so on and so forth. So we got Shyamalan running at our screen. Now let's get Shyamalan to fire Flappy Birds at us so that it makes it more of a challenge. So over there, let's go ahead and I believe we already initialized our Flappy Bird, but we'll also need the code that keeps track of projectiles. So let me copy the code that we already have from up here, and I'm going to paste it down here. And let's call this int clip2, int tracker2, and int projectile tracker2. Now we want the boss to have more than 50 shots, so I'm going to increase this amount to 5,000. So he can fire up to 5,000 times, if needed. Not that he will, but if he needed to, he can. Let's go to our projectile launcher code, and I'm just going to straight up copy this for now. Since we already have the code, might as well use it. Of course, we're going to have to modify it a little, but let's just use it as a starting point. I'm going to rename it to int projectile launcher Shyamalan. And it's fine if we have an int counter here when it's equal to 1. And let's see, how should he shoot? So I think I'm going to have M. Night Shyamalan shoot up first, then right, then down, then left. So he's going to shoot in that order. Or maybe you should just do up, down, left, right. Yeah, let's do up, down, left, right, since we already have it shooting up, down, left, and right. So in our int counter, let's set this to 2 in projectile tracker 2's, since this is going to be the one for M. Night Shyamalan. And every time it goes through the counter, let's go ahead and add one to our int movement. So I'm going to copy this line for a second. When we add one to int counter, let's also add one to int projectile tracker 2, because this is our int movement, and it's going to allow it to cycle inside this while loop. So it's going to do the first one always first, and let's guarantee that by before we enter that while loop, let's just set it equal to 1. So we're going to set it equal to 1, then we're going to enter this while loop, and it's going to run the first one because it's equal to 1, and then after that it's going to add 1, so it's going to be 2, and it's going to enter the while loop again, and then it'll run the second one, then the third and the fourth. Now once it hits 5, we'd be in trouble. So let's say if int projectile tracker, let me just paste the code since I already have it. If this is equal to 5, then let's reset it back to 1. So if this turns to 5, let's set it back to 1, and then that way it can loop into it until it finally reaches the end. And I forgot we have 5,000 shots, not 50, so let me change it to 5,000. And for now, I think that's good. Let's go up to where we launch our projectile. And now let's have a launch for Shyamalan. So boss launch projectile. Let me go ahead and copy this code and paste it there, except let's rename projectile launcher to projectile launcher Shyamalan. It's fine if it sets int tracker back to 1, and while int tracker is less than 5,000, let's make BMP Flappy Bird, or BMP Flappy for me, transparent, and then draw BMP Flappy